All right, let's talk about something that gives pretty much every homeowner nightmares. Seeing water where it's absolutely not supposed to be. It's pure panic, right? Well, in this explainer, we're going to cut through all that chaos. We'll demystify water damage so you know what's happening, why it's happening, and most importantly, what on earth you should do next. Okay, let me ask you something. What do you think is the most destructive force in your home? I mean, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Fire, right? Or maybe high winds. Termites? Yeah, those are all bad for sure. But what if I told you the single biggest threat is something you probably use, a dozen times a day without even thinking about it? Yep, it's water. And here's the scary part. Unlike a fire, there's no alarm for a slow leak. Water damage is, well, it's sneaky, it's silent, it's persistent, and it can do some truly devastating harm long before you even have a clue there's a problem. It really is the hidden enemy lurking in your home. And this is something you've got to wrap your head around. We're not just talking about some huge, dramatic flood here. The real risk of water damage is a constant, everyday thing. It's literally woven into the fabric of your house. I mean, just look at all the ways this can happen. If you live somewhere with expansive clay soil, the ground itself can literally shift and crack pipes right under your foundation. Or, in any humid climate, your own AC unit can start dripping condensation inside your walls. And that's before we even get to the usual suspects. Things like burst washing machine hoses, clogged drains, or of course, a major storm. The threat is, no joke, coming from every single angle.
Okay, so the second that water shows up where it shouldn't be, a clock starts ticking. And I mean it starts immediately. This brings us to what is, without a doubt, the most critical phase of all. The first 48 hours. This is a flat-out race against something the pros call secondary damage. And that's just a fancy term for all the awful stuff that starts to happen after the initial leak.
And what's the number one reason for that insane urgency? Mold. And listen, this isn't me being dramatic. This is just straight-up biology. You give mold a warm, damp place to live, and it doesn't just grow. It colonizes. It basically sets up shop. And it happens so much faster than you think. So let's actually break this down on a timeline, because it's pretty wild. Within just 1 hour, your drywall is already soaking up water like a sponge. By the 24-hour mark, that mold we just talked about, it started to grow, even though you can't see it yet. Fast forward to 48 hours, and now we're talking about real structural damage. Wood starts to warp and rot. And if you wait 72 hours or more, well, now you can probably see the mold, and that's when your insurance company might start giving you a hard time. So, if there is one number you take away from this whole thing, it's this. 48 hours. That is your window of opportunity. Seriously, acting fast within those first 2 days is the single biggest thing you can do to stop a manageable problem from snowballing into a crazy expensive, tear down the walls kind of nightmare. All right, so we know we have to act fast. But part of acting smart is knowing exactly what you're up against. Because, and this is really important, not all water is created equal. From a pro's perspective, where that water came from completely changes the game. It tells you everything about the kind of threat you're facing. You see, the professionals, they don't just wing it. They follow a very specific scientific standard from a group called the IICRC. That's a mouthful. It stands for the Institute of Inspection, Cleaning, and Restoration Certification. The point is, this isn't guesswork. It's a whole system they use to classify water based on how contaminated it is. And that classification decides everything: what safety gear they need, the cleanup methods, the whole shebang. And here's basically how it breaks down. You've got Category 1. That's clean water. Think of a broken water supply line. The health risk is pretty minimal. Then there's Category 2, or gray water. Picture an overflowing washing machine. That water's got some gunk in it, detergents, dirt, so it needs antimicrobial treatment. And then you have Category 3, black water. This is the bad stuff. We're talking sewage, river flooding. It's grossly contaminated and calls for full-on hazmat gear. You can see how the response for each one is worlds apart. Okay, so we've got the problem, we've got the timeline, we know the different kinds of water. So how do the pros actually fix this mess? Well, they have a playbook, a really clear, step-by-step, 3-phase plan that's all about bringing your home back from the brink. Step 1 is all about emergency extraction. They bring in these massive truck-mounted pumps to get thousands of gallons of standing water out, and fast. Step 2 is maybe the most important part: structural drying. This is where they set up giant commercial-grade dehumidifiers and air movers to literally pull moisture out from inside your walls and floors. Then, and only after they've used meters to prove everything is bone dry, they move to step 3, restoration and rebuild. That's when they replace the damaged drywall or flooring and make it look like the whole disaster never even happened. All right, last section here. Let's talk about what happens after the water is gone and the immediate panic is over. Because this is where you, the homeowner, have to make some really big decisions. Choices that are going to impact your wallet and the health of your house for years to come. And this really lays out the biggest fork in the road you'll face. Should I try to clean this up myself or call a pro? Let's be real, your shop vac and a couple of fans just can't compete with their gear. If you go the DIY route, you're almost guaranteed to miss hidden moisture, which, as we know, leads to mold. Plus, you could totally mess up your insurance claim because you don't have the right documentation. The pros use thermal cameras and moisture meters to find every last drop and prove it. And that proof is exactly what your insurance adjuster wants to see. And while we're on the topic of insurance, this is a super important thing to get straight. Your standard homeowner's policy, it'll probably cover sudden and accidental stuff, like a pipe that just bursts out of nowhere. But it almost never covers gradual damage, like that slow leak behind the fridge you didn't notice for 6 months. And the biggest one, flooding that comes from outside your house, like from a hurricane, that requires a totally separate flood insurance policy. A lot of people get tripped up by that. So when you boil it all down, it really comes back to that certification we talked about. Hiring a pro who is IICRC certified, it's not just a nice to have, it's the standard. It guarantees they're using science and data to dry your home, not just guessing. It's pretty much required by insurance companies if you want your claim approved. And at the end of the day, it's what truly protects your house and your bank account. So let's just end on this one thought. I want you to imagine right now, water is just pouring into your home. The panic is real. But now you actually have a framework, a plan of attack. You understand that 48-hour clock, you know the risks, you know what questions to ask. So the only real question left is, do you have a plan?